Last week, this channel put out a leak that attempted to prepare PC gamers for today's Navi 32 launch by disclosing several important things. One of those things was disclosing that Nvidia, due to underfunding their gaming software teams versus their cash cow AI teams, would at least in the short term see performance issues in Starfield, and that they were even considering planting some anti-competitive AMD stories, again apparently, to cover this up. And if you look around, Nvidia cards clearly have wonky performance at some settings in Starfield, and they have a general utilization problem, not a consistent underperforming problem. And many gamers online are even alleging that when they try the game-ready drivers over drivers from weeks ago, they are game-ready in name only. There is no performance difference, directly suggesting that indeed Nvidia just didn't finish their homework on time. Now, the second important thing that was disclosed was leaking rough performance of Navi 32 cards early, so that if these cards turned out to be sales hits, and many of my contacts in retail weeks ago warned me they could be sales hits, you would know enough early before the launch so that you could pull the trigger quickly. Now, the third thing was adding further context regarding supply, that I was sure there would be a ton of cards at launch, but that there should be even more coming in the foreseeable future, depending on which cards sold, to what degree in what region. Now, this isn't like some launches where there's just a dump and then it dries up. If you missed your chance to get a Navi 32 graphics card today, well, there will be more soon. And on that note, I actually do want to start this video by covering day one sales, because I think this is the most impactful thing for PC gamers right now. And yeah, as expected, the RX 7800 XT, it's a sales darling. Already in the US, the 7800 XT is the #1 best-selling card on Amazon, and that's important to point out because you can't become the best seller unless there is a lot of supply, and there is. So if you see one still around MSRP, you may actually want to snag it if you want to have that card soon, because I think the 7800 XT is going to hold its MSRP, and until the next wave of shipments come, I think this card could be hard to get over the next few weeks. And actually, let me give you some more information here. Let me throw these testimonials on screen that I've been accumulating all day. Now, this first source here from a major online retailer wanted to be clear that they don't believe their storefront got as much supply as other online retailers. But nonetheless, once the 7800 XT went on sale, it was gone within hours within the country that it was sold in, and that the 7700 XT is still selling well too, just not as well as the 7800 XT. Now, a second source told me that while they don't have access to centralized numbers like some of the sources on screen here do, at least at their location, which was a physical storefront, both cards, the 7700 XT and 7800 XT, sold out completely at their location today. A third source, one of my best ones who's known for giving me very consistent information that has really always been consistent with the overall trend, told me that last month the major sellers were the 6950 XT, as long as it was at $600, the 4070, and the 6800 XT, as long as it was below $600. And that based on this person thought that there definitely is a hunger out there for solid $400 to $600 GPUs. And thus, when they saw the announced price points for the cards that came out today, they thought they were going to sell very well. But what they saw far exceeded their expectations. They said it was wild. Within hours of opening at their location, multiple sales reps had told this person that they each sold handfuls of 7800 XTs, and by closing, most of their stock was gone, and they expect all of the stock at this location to be gone by the end of the weekend, which is an important thing to mention here, because if you have something that's high-end, or should I say ultra high-end, like an RTX 4090, people are probably willing to take off work or put in a little extra effort to get it. They clearly have the money to burn, and this means a lot to them if they're going to spend over $1,000 for a graphics card. But mid-range graphics cards, people tend to buy them over the weekend because they're not essential. They're just something they want, not something they've decided they need and have tons of money for. And so even if things haven't completely sold out on some stores today, these are mid-range cards. They should all be gone by the end of this weekend, according to multiple people. Let's throw up the quotes again and get to source number 4. This person here has access to centralized sales numbers at one of the biggest US retailers. This person told me after this, right before they went home, I should say, that this was the most successful GPU launch they've seen in 2023. Granted, that's not saying that much considering how bad this year has been, but it is clear that the 7800 XT hit a price point with a level of performance that a lot of this store's customers have been waiting for. And actually, they wanted to make sure I understood that the 7700 XT, it's selling well too, just not as well as the 7800 XT. And, well, if we go to source number 5, that actually comes from somebody at AMD. This person told me they're very happy with day one sales based on the early feedback they've been getting from AIBs. They have overall exceeded their sales expectations, although, yes, the 7700 XT is selling weaker than the 7800 XT, but especially in North America, it seems to be selling almost as well in other regions outside North America, but they're going to respond accordingly. And yep, just like I leaked, that they held back some supply. This is so they could redirect the supply proportionally to each region. So moving forward, instead of it maybe being 50% 7800 XT and 50% 7700 XT, Navi 32 shipments to North America should become around 60% versus 40%, whereas in other regions they may keep it 50-50, as like in Europe, for example, the 7700 XT is apparently selling fine. And you know, if you actually just look online at publicly available data, you can see that, well, I actually checked just after noon today how sales were going, and it looked like the 7800 XT was selling well. And then right before I started recording this video, it was gone. The 7800 XT is sold out on Newegg, it's sold out on AMD.com, it's sold out on Best Buy, and it seems like the 7700 XT is starting to pick up on sales as well. So again, if you actually see the 7800 XT, especially close to MSRP in stock, and you're going to want to have this with Starfield within the next month, I would just get it because it is going to sell out in the short term. I warned people it would, and it seems like it is. And you know, if you actually look around on third-party benchmarks, it's obvious why this is happening. I mean, I think Gamers Nexus showed this in the thumbnail pretty well. Basically, today is turning into an argument over which card is fucking the 4070 harder, because both cards make the 4070 and especially the 4060 Ti look stupid, which was actually something I noticed when I got those early benchmarks last week. I pointed out that based on what I was seeing here, it seemed like, yes, I would get a 7800 XT over the 7700 XT, fork over that extra $50 for sure. But if you remove the 7800 XT from the equation, that 12 gigabyte 7700 XT, it's still only 10 to 15% weaker than the 12 gigabyte 4070, well, costing hundreds of dollars less. It still makes its Nvidia counterparts look stupid. But yeah, the 7800 XT is for sure the star of the show, usually beating the 4070, although not always, but enough to be on average the better card in raster. And even in ray tracing, it's not a clean sweep from the 4070. Sometimes the 7800 XT still wins even when you turn on ray tracing. And the overall value, look, it's not just in raster price to performance. Even in ray tracing, the 7800 XT is on average better value than its Nvidia counterpart, to the point that I think it is the blueprint. I think this card touches on a theory I've had about what it would take for AMD to consistently have successful GPU launches for months now. And I think that besides the name, it is that perfect example of how AMD needs to position all of their cards moving forward to have clear-cut wins in the eyes of consumers. And I want to talk about that and actually why I do think AMD went with that stupid name for this card. But first, an ad from Micro Center. Micro Center is opening up yet another new store in Charlotte, North Carolina, the second new store in 8 years, bringing the total to 26 nationwide. By signing up and visiting the new Charlotte store, you can receive a 128 gigabyte flash drive for free. You do need to go there to get that flash drive, but you don't even need to be a new Micro Center customer. You could just happen by if you're in the area, and they'll give you a free 128 gigabyte flash drive. But if you are a new customer, you can get $25 off any CPU, including that sexy Micro Center exclusive 5600X3D, and you can also get another $25 off of your build if you just submit a picture of it. So if you're planning to build a PC this week with an RX 7800 XT, make sure you use the links in the description to get $50 off total on top of all of their other deals. That's right. All of these deals stack on top of each other and on top of other deals that are out there. So please click those links in the description. Just clicking on the links helps Moore's Law is dead lot. And if you're looking to buy any of these products at Micro Center, well, clicking on those links will help you save even more money doing so. And I do think it's really one of the best, if not the best places to get PC parts in America. Support Moore's Law is dead at Micro Center today. All right. Now, I said this before the ad break, and I want to continue the conversation. I believe the 7800 XT is the blueprint for AMD's future success in graphics. And it basically just proves this theory I've had for months now that there seems to be a roughly a 30% rule with Radeon that, if achieved, always seems to garner a Radeon product success in recent years. And no, I don't think this rule is just stating the obvious or something, or at least it's not stating anything that's obvious to AMD lately. If you go back through AMD's history, in fact, you can see that they often either vastly underprice their cards, like in the case of the $550 290X that was practically sold for charity prices against the $1,000 GTX Titan, or they will price their cards vastly underestimating their mind share, like with the 6700 XT, where they thought for some reason just removing 5% of the cost below a 3070 was enough to make up for having slightly less performance than the 3070 just because they had more VRAM. No, that doesn't cut it. It's a roughly 30% rule. I think that I've noticed, especially recently, that I think if AMD just sticks to this rule, they will just start taking market share and getting more consistently good reviews from reviewers. And that 30%, it's actually a combination of raster pricing and VRAM. It's not an exact science, but, well, here's a couple of examples of what I think would make an AMD product successful. So, if AMD launches something with the same amount of VRAM as Nvidia and at the same price, so again, same price, same amount of RAM, well, then I think it just needs to be a flat-out 30% faster than its Nvidia counterpart to sell well. And this is because, whether you think it's fair or not, it doesn't matter. It is clear the average consumer believes that Nvidia has a ray tracing advantage and an upscaling tech advantage with DLSS that dictates that they get this 30% handicap. All right, well, let me give another example. Let's say AMD wants to launch a card that's only 15% stronger than its Nvidia counterpart. Well, I'd suggest that it then also needs to be 15% cheaper, or if it's just 10% cheaper, it better have a big VRAM bonus so that we can round up to 30%. If there is an Nvidia product that costs $550 and AMD has something 15% stronger and they want to charge $499, well, that's okay, but then they better also have a huge VRAM advantage. And, whether it's fair or not, Nvidia is just the default. We have to be honest with how this works. Nvidia is seen as the default. They have more mind share than AMD. People are going to look at them first if they are looking to buy a graphics card. And then, well, if AMD is lucky, they will briefly look at AMD and that price range to get a gut check. For people to suddenly decide that their gut was wrong, that they should go with the person that isn't the default, that they should go with the company that they haven't been programmed by marketing and a lot of the press to believe is always worse, then AMD, I think they need to hit that 30% mark. And I'm confident now, after seeing recent examples like the 7900 XTX sell better than the RTX 4080 due to the latter costing 20% more while offering less VRAM. Or the 7900 XT. Finally, it sold well, horribly at first. The 7900 XT started selling well against the 4070 Ti when it was about 10% cheaper, while being about 14% stronger and having a little more VRAM. Around 30%. That's the magic number. And of course, today we have another example, the 7800 XT, that is clearly outselling its Nvidia counterparts, like the 4070 that costs 20% more, is a little bit weaker, and then to round it up to 30%, has less VRAM. AMD, this is the way. You have the blueprint for success. Just keep following this. Well, and also, stop thinking short term with how you name your graphics cards. That is one major criticism I have of the 7800 XT. And I actually want to talk about why this is a long-term issue for Radeon's brand that I don't think enough people are talking about. But first, let me just acknowledge there are, after I thought about it, real short-term reasons that AMD's named so many RDNA 3 graphics cards in a wonky way, right? For example, I believe AMD insisted on putting XT at the end of 7800 because they know that XT, well, it has a lot of clout. It has resonance. For example, I don't think the Steam hardware survey is free of flaws, and I don't actually look at it as any perfect estimation of market share. But I think you can use it to maybe compare the sales of AMD cards relative to each other. And if you do, the 6800 XT is there. The 6800, it's not even on the Steam hardware survey. So AMD probably looks at that and they go, well, there's tons of people that told people the 6800 XT was good and people bought them. We have to put XT on this name. We have to call it the RX 7800 XT because no matter what we call it, everybody, it's going to get good reviews, right? It has to with how we're pricing it and what its performance is. So it's going to get good reviews. And then when people walk into stores, they'll just remember, I heard good things about it. And maybe I didn't get the 6800 XT, so I'm not missing this generation. It has a ton of buzz, and it's an XT. I think that's what AMD is thinking. And I also think that for similar reasons, that's why they called what should have been the 7800 XT the 7900 Golden Rabbit Edition. Because they knew if they put a 7 and then a 9 in China with Golden Rabbit, it would probably sell better than 7800 XT. Although, let me be clear, AMD should have called the Golden Rabbit Edition the 7800 XT, and they should have called the darling of today's launches the 7800. No XT necessary. And, well, I'm sure it got them some short-term sales. I think it's a long-term issue. And if you go back and look at AMD's launches over the past 5 years, Fury X, Vega 64, 7900 XTX. Oh, we got to drop the price on the XT, Golden Rabbit Edition, 7800 XT, but it's really nearly the same performance as a 6800 XT. AMD, short term, you may make more sales happen every now and then, but long term, you're confusing your brand. It's confusing. As I do believe AMD, as long as you think short term and you try to play a 6D chess match every time you name a graphics card, it's going to hold back the brand's potential. And its potential that you almost achieved, I think. I mean, RDNA 2 really accomplished something. They had a lineup where the 9, the 6900 XT, was thought of as overall weaker than the 3090, but comparable. And the 6800 XT, thought of as overall weaker than the 3080, but it was comparable. And the 6700 XT, even though its price could have been more aggressive, it was thought of as a 3070 competitor. AMD, you achieved something that I don't know that you ever achieved before in your history. Your 9 card was compared to Nvidia's 9 card. Your 8 to their 8, your 7 to their 7. If you would have just called the XTX, the 7900 XT, sure, it would have still lost to the 4090, but it would have been a $1,000 card that people thought had better value than Nvidia stuff. And you could have said, well, but it has 50% more RAM than the 4080. It's still in between those two cards, and so on and so forth down the stack. And that type of brand acceptance is hard to have. I mean, heck, actually the groundwork was laid with the 5700 XT. The 5700 XT beat the 2070. So AMD had 2 generations in a row where things were named accordingly. And I think if they would have just done it one more generation, heck, especially if they would have, even if they'd have charged $900, if they would have called the 7900 XTX, the 7800 XT, and then gone down the stack correctly, I think they would have, after 3 gens in a row of correctly and consistently naming things, they would have had a great hierarchy with long-term brand acceptance. But now, because you keep just throwing out random names constantly, people don't always really know what they're getting, AMD, and while it might help you short-term, it's not helping you long term. And actually, yeah, that's how I want to close this video, by just openly saying it one more time. AMD 2023 has been a year of GPU sales duds, and today you have a card that's selling very well. But it didn't require you selling it for half the price of Nvidia. You just had to sell it low enough that people look at it and quickly go, yep, that's a better deal. It's better than gambling with DLSS or something. I'll take that. And so this is it. This is your blueprint for future success. Just stick to this rule. And, oh, do me a favor. Can you get the name fucking right next time? Thanks. And that is going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, remember to subscribe to the Moore's Law is Dead YouTube channel and ring the bell button. Also, consider checking out Broken Silicon on your podcast app of choice. Subscribing to that also helps get our numbers up in other avenues of the internet as well. But additionally, if you have the extra money, consider supporting us on Patreon. We cannot do this without our patrons. You get early ad-free access to Broken Silicon, the ability to ask me and guest questions, and you also get premium ad-free content that nobody else gets, like Die Shrink. A new one's coming out this week. It is over an hour and a half. It's almost 2 hours long. It's basically a bonus Broken Silicon with another member of the Moore's Law is Dead team, Carbon Cry. We will be discussing all of the things announced at Hot Chips, and we get into some really good conversations about why Nvidia has a ray tracing advantage and, well, other thoughts that we have about Sierra Force and other things as well. Bonus content like this is coming out every week for patrons without ads, and it's only $2 a month. Not even a cup of coffee a month, a can of tuna a month. Please consider supporting us there. But no matter what, if you've made it this far, thank you for watching.